our 16th video in our 3D racer project. Last time we made two different race modes, a normal race mode and a score race mode. And we haven't set up the buttons yet for our normal race mode to do its normal things, but we will be fixing that. But in this one, we want to finish building out our score race mode. I think that's what we called it, where we're trying to collect collectibles that both give us money and increase our time. So we want to finish out the aspect of increasing our time, and we'll start touching on ways for us to lose the race in this video. So let's jump straight into that. Currently what we have is when we're in our normal score mode, we collect the can and we are getting points, but we need to make sure that time also is going up and down. So on my canvas, I already have a panel of UI objects. So timer panel, and I have a race panel and a score panel, and score panel currently has a score title, a score object. So wait, yeah, I might need to make that a little bit bigger in case I get more than 10 in a scene. I probably need to play with that. Let me actually move my score title over some and make this a little bit larger this way. And I'm going to change my alignment so that the score sits over here. That way it has more room to keep adding at the beginning. And I'm going to just change that value to be 0. And then my time remaining title, I'm just going to move this over to right about here. And I'm going to take my score object and Command D to duplicate. I'm going to use this one just above for my timer. Change the name of this to be timer. And I'll keep the alignment like that, but let me just go ahead and make 0.00. And see how that plays out. I've had some issues with timers before where the number rolls down because of the shape, but we'll look and see how that plays out. I'm going to save our progress for now. So let's go to our scripts. And I apologize for the sniffling. Got a cold. I'm trying to keep it down, but if it comes up, I apologize for that. So in our score mode script, currently this is what we have. So we're looking to see if we have a mode selected, and then the update, we're updating our score here. We're going to also use this to update our timer as well. Now last year, I gave you guys a website, and I don't recall what it looks like, that showed you how to make a countdown timer. We're basically going to be using that. I think it's from beginnergamedev.com or gamedevbeginner.com. I don't recall the name of the site, but it was a very useful site, and that's how I learned how to do timers. And I've done enough now that I'm pretty familiar with how they work in and out. So hopefully I don't make any mistakes while doing this, but I'm referencing that way. We did the count up timer a different way. We used it the way that Jimmy Vegas did in his video, and I think it's a little cumbersome. I changed it to a TextMesh Pro UGUI. He didn't do that, and so we're going to do this more streamlined version of a counter, but it's easier to do with countdowns. So let's start from the very beginning of what we need to know. So for a timer to work, a countdown timer, we need to know how much time we start with. So I'm going to create a public float, and it's called time remaining, semicolon. And I actually want to reference time remaining on some other scripts. So for example, in our collectible script, whenever we collect something, we want to add to our time remaining. So because I want to be able to see that variable on other classes, across different classes, I need to make a public static float. That way it can be seen and manipulated across other classes. Great. I think we're going to start with this. So let me save that. So at the beginning of the game, when it starts, I need to set time remaining to a value equal to, and for my purposes, I'm thinking something like 10 to 15 seconds. Let's try 15 for now. So 15 comma. Of course, I don't want to store numbers down here, so I need to come out here to the top and make a public. I'll just do float. Start our time at start and set it equal to 15. And I'm going to change it down here. Perfect. So whenever the game starts, we will be set to 15 automatically, or whenever score mode starts. So let's go into our update to check and see how we want to do this. So if we're going to do a conditional statement, so if, and basically we'll want to say that as long as we're above 0, we want to know that the timer is going, and we should start counting down. So if time remaining is greater than 0, so as long as we have time left, let's make it so that time remaining counts down. Minus equals, and then the way we do that is time.delta time. So the same way that we counted up earlier, we're doing it the opposite way here. And if not, if time is not greater than 0, let's set it to be exactly 0 so that it will not continue to keep counting. Equals 0. Okay. So that looks pretty good so far. Now that's helpful. This is our actual counting down, but we want to be able to display this information. So to display it, let's reference a TextMesh Pro UGUI, which we already have a reference to TMP Pro namespace. So we're going to create a public TextMesh Pro UGUI. I'm going to call it timer text, which we already made. That's what we made outside of here. And we're going to need to display this. So instead of doing it here every frame, let's just build a method that will control that for us. And before we get into that, I'm going to go ahead and make the name though void display time open argument. Now time is a float, and we're going to say time to display. What time do we want to show? And then open this up. So before we get too far into this though, we want to be able to turn our timer on and off, particularly because we don't want the game to start with the timer counting down. We want to be able to say start at a certain point. So after, our countdown script goes 3, 2, 1, then start the timer. So set it to 15, then go work our way downwards. So we need to make a Boolean, and I want to go ahead and do that first before we get too heavy into this. So on line 18 for me, I'm going to create a little space here between my things so we can keep up with what score information is and then what time information is. Okay, so public static, and I'm going to be checking. So on our countdown script, here's what I'm planning on doing. On our countdown script, whenever it gets to counts down 3, 2, 1, it will then turn on the Boolean that we're making, so then the timer can start. So let's come back over here. Public static, so it needs to be seen elsewhere. Boolean and I think it's just going to call it timer is running. And of course, the way we like to name bools is something is something. It's like a question. Like, can we ask the question, is the timer running? So when the game starts, we don't want the timer running. We want to say timer is running equals false. And I put in just this in case we select this mode. We have to be in this mode for this to work. Okay. So in this update, we don't need this to occur unless the timer is running. So if timer is running, press return, open up some brackets. I'm going to delete this one. So pay attention to this. So you need a bracket here, and then the closed one will go right there. There we go. So if the timer is running, and if timer is above 0, they keep moving downwards, and if not, then timer equals 0. And whenever the timer equals 0, then we need to make sure the timer is no longer running. It sees that the boolean is off. So set it to false. Oh, not floss, but false. And then here we can also store everything that we want to have happen, or our lose conditions, if we want to. But we have a race to finish script. Because when timer equals 0 and we haven't won the race, then we should have some lose conditions, and we might just call that from here. But let's go ahead and make sure we're displaying our time first before we get any further. So displaying time is a little weird. I'll try to explain it again, because last year I'm sure you guys don't remember how to do it. I get confused too sometimes on the way, but I've learned as well. So the way you do it is you take your float, and it doesn't need to be public or whatever because it's held within its own method, and we're going to make a float called minutes, and minutes is going to be equal to math of f, and this is basically does a mathematical equation for us. It tells us it basically processes the equation on our behalf, and we want to floor to integer. So inside of our argument, I guess I should just type it out. Let me get it out here first and then kind of explain what's happening here. Time to display divided by 60 space. So basically we want it to do a math equation for us. That's what math f is. And the argument is the time to display divided by 60 is the number of minutes we have, because there's 60 minutes within 60 seconds within that time frame, or that constructed time frame. So it's dividing the number of seconds that we start with by 60 to equate to minutes, and then it's grading it, putting it to the closest whole number. So right at the beginning of the game, it's going to be 0 because we have 0 minutes. But if we keep collecting these gas tanks and they go above 60 seconds, then it'll round up to the next one. And we'll do the same thing here for seconds. Math f floor to int time to display, and the percentage is 60. And that's how we just do seconds. And we're not going to do milliseconds for this. There's no real reason to do so. And now we just want to display it. So we're going to say, we have our reference to our timer text already up here at the top. So we're just going to say timer text dot text is equal to, and string dot format. So we're just going to make a string and open up an argument. And with time formatting, we can do it. And I wish I'd done this with you in the first game, the first time we did timing. And I might go back and re-record that segment at some point. So this represents the minutes here, and this is the value. And then this is how many spaces we have for it. So right now, it would be 0. I mean, it would be 2 spaces, placeholders for us. And then for the seconds part, it'd have 2 spaces here. And then outside the argument, it needs to know, that's how the equation works. It wants to know, so this is the formatting, and this is what argument it needs to receive, or what value. So the colon between the two will be separated by a comma over here. So the first one is minutes, comma, seconds. And then close that, and then semicolon there. And that's essentially it. The only thing we haven't done yet is actually use this method anywhere. So this right here is just in control of taking our numbers and putting them in a format. It doesn't do anything else. All the counting actually happens here on line 45. But once we finish counting for that frame, I want to say display time. And the time I want to display is our time remaining, passing that argument through. So that's a lot of information here. I'm going to save that, and we need to go set this up. Actually, let me read through it with you one more time to make sure you understand. So at the start, we're going to say the timer is not running, so that we can turn it on from other scripts like our countdown script. And we're going to set how much time we want to start with here, and I'm set mine to 15, and I made it a public float so I can change it. Every frame, we're going to see if the timer is running. If it is running, then if the timer is greater than 0, let's keep subtracting time and displaying it. If the timer is running and we are below or get to 0 or below, we're going to just set it to 0 so it can't go to negative values, and we're going to turn off the timer so that it no longer continues to run. And that's essentially what our script does. So let me cut back over here. And this is all on my mode manager. And we have some new variables that we need to initialize. I think really it is going to be our time at start is set to 15 and our timer text object. So go over here to canvas, score panel, here's our timer. There's open my manager, drag that over right there. The only thing I don't like is I have to move back and forth to test it. What I want to keep an eye on is to see if this number shows up as 2, 0, and so forth, or if this box is big enough, because that was a problem for me. Oh, but you know what? I've never turned the timer on, because I want to do that at countdown. So before we do anything else, this won't work because the timer at the start is set to false. Right here we set it to false. I need to turn it on, and I wanted to do that in the countdown script. So over here in the countdown script, at the very top, I need to be able to reference what mode we're in. We want to say if we are in the score mode, then check and see if that's the case, then turn on the timer. We don't want to turn this on in our normal race mode. So public integer, because it was either 1 for race mode, I think, or score mode, and 2 for race mode. So mode selected. At the start, let's go check that. So mode selected is equal to, and what script was that on? It was on the mode select script, and score mode was game mode equals 1. So name of the script was mode select dot game mode. So make this will be basically equals to 1, and we'll come down here at the very bottom. If at the end of everything, oh come on, get out of here. If mode selected is equals to 1, then we want to reference our what script was that again? Dang it. Score mode. score mode dot timer is running. Now, if you don't see timer is running, if you didn't get that to show up to you for you, don't forget to make sure that there's a public static boolean so that it can be seen outside of the script. Okay. We want to set it equal to true. So that way when you get to 3, 2, 1, turn the timer on. Save that. All right. Let's go back one scene because we know this doesn't work out of this scene because it doesn't get the race mode here. I could set it manually. Let's not do that though. There's no need to overcomplicate this. And it's good to check moving from this scene to the next scene in case we accidentally break something. All right. Click, score. The timer is not counting down yet. There you go. So I'm not trying to drive yet. Our timer is counting down. Awesome. I'm going to go back into that scene. And I do want to try something. I was playing with it the first time with 20 being my value, and it kind of like went off the edge. I want to see if that's going to happen again. And let me go ahead and I'm going to go with 20 seconds if it works. Oh, I can't play out of the scene. I keep forgetting that. Okay. Command S, save that, go back to track select, and press play. Yeah, it kept on running off the edge, and I think it has everything to do with my font. But I also want to set this so that the number shows up automatically as the value. That worked out okay. Alright. I think 15 is pretty good. And I'll move my gas can further out to make that more interesting. But I'm going to change this back to 15 for my sake. That's the number I'm going to start with. And I'll go ahead and have the canvas, timer panel, score panel, timer reflect that value of 15. So it looks like that's what you start off with for the player. And I'm going to save that. So whenever we collect the cans, let's make it so that they add some time to our time remaining. So our gas can, we have the collectible script. And we need to have a variable up here at the top, public int, and it's going to be called time to add, and on trigger enter, let's just get a reference to our score mode dot time remaining plus equals time to add. Now I have it right now, it's set to 0. I'm going to just make it equal to, I don't know, maybe 5 seconds every time. Save that. So this right here will add to our score mode that time remaining, so it'll give us 5 seconds additional. And oops, I did it again, where I just pressed play when I came into the scene. Come on. Command P, stop doing that. Go to assets, scenes, track 01, and press play. Oh, what is wrong with me? I did it again. It's track select. All right. Focus. I'm trying to think about the next thing and how long I want this video to go, and I need to think about what I'm doing right now. So score. Timer is not starting. Let's see if it adds some time here. Does. Oh, I missed that guy. But we saw it go up, which is what we need to see. Good. Now haven't tested yet to see if we put a bunch out. You know what, let's go ahead and try that. If I put a bunch of these out, well, you know what I should do? Let me prefab this first gas can here, and I'm going to create original prefab, so that way I can just, and I'm going to take this second one out, delete that one, and just start putting some into the world. Right there. And I'm just going to throw a bunch in the world back to back so that I can test to see if I'm going to hit F on my keyboard to zoom in to see if I can get up above a minute. And you know what, on the prefab, let me open that. Let's say time to add is 20 seconds, just so I can test that out. I want to see if the time displays the way I want it to for minutes. Oh, hope it doesn't break. Command S, save that. Do not press play in this scene. I'm instead going to go to scenes, track select, and press play because I have temporarily learned my lesson. Click, score. Ooh, oh, I think I have one right there at the beginning. Did I just put some like... Okay, the timer is working the way you want it to. Did I suddenly drag some like right into my car? Oh, you know what? On trigger enter. Does the ground have a collider? Maybe I should check for a tag on that. I suspect that's what's going on. I'll have to look at that more later, and that's not something I want to spend a lot of time on doing right now. But let me go back into our gas can prefab and open that up and change that to be 5 seconds. I think 5 seconds is more appropriate. Save that, go back, and yeah, changed all of our time to adds back to 5 seconds. You are going to take a bunch of these gas cans and put them out around the world, so that as you race around the track, right, and play with how long it takes for you to go in between around each of these. And you're going to want to do that for your night track too. I'm not going to take the time to show you to do that. You know, you get the idea of placing these around. But what I do want to show you is, I'm going to save that, is you should put all of them, so create an empty and call it Collectibles, or whatever you want to call it, but something related to that. Put all of them inside of that object, so that whenever we go to our race modes, so I think the script here, score mode, right, if that the collectibles are off at the beginning, and then build a reference to that game object here. So I'm going to build it up at the top. So public game object collectibles. Gets turned on if we're in this mode here. So collectibles dot set active is true. And on our mode manager, let's drag that reference in. I wanted to call that script, man. I last video, I know I talked about it. I wanted to call it, instead of score mode, I wanted to call it game mode. That makes way more sense. Oh, I regret that. I could change it, but let's not go through the hassle of that. Reference collectibles, drag it into here, and save that. So the last thing I want to do is create a quick lose condition. And our losing condition is if we get to 0, so where's this underscore mode? if we get to 0, we want to be able to say that the race is over, but these bad things sort of happen. Like, well, not bad things, but like we just finished the race. So we have a script called race finished that like turns off our cars, our enemy cars, all of this stuff. And I haven't tested this yet, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be okay the way I'm going to approach this. We might get some null reference exceptions because our enemy car does not exist in this scene. Or we can build a new... Actually, let's do it that way. Okay, so go to your race finish script. And I'm going to call it void... No, do I want to do that? Yeah. Here's what I'm torn about. I'm afraid of getting these null reference exceptions. Let's do it the easiest but not the most efficient way, or probably not the most proper way, but it still will work. And if we get any issues, then I'm going to go back and clean some of this up. So really what we want to do is to check and see is if the race has won, right? We want to say, is the race won or is it not won? Public. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Public static boolean and race is won. And we're just going to check. So if we complete our completed tracks, we go around twice, and we've got all the things that we need to do, we'll say race is won. And then if not, we want to change our music as well. So right now we have currently like at 11th level, like here is good. So race is finished. So race is finished. Let's just put it up here. If race is won, then I'm just going to take out the level music set, not level music set active, but didn't we have a race finish reference here? I think I accidentally deleted that. Yeah, finish music. I think I accidentally deleted it. Finish music dot play, which was our like upbeat jingle. Else, so if the race is not won, we're gonna make a new music here. Public audio source lost, or lose music, loser music. How about that? Fine. Loser music dot play. Okay. Now we haven't actually set this condition though. So yeah, the reason I want to build it in here because this is already doing all the work for us. So instead, I save that, and it's really our lap complete script that is doing this work for us. So if completed laps equals required laps, finish race manager dot set active is true. So if we do complete our laps, we want to say race manager dot race is won is set to true. So if we complete our laps, then race is won is true. Perfect. And then that comes back over here to our race finish script. When it wakes up, I should actually, okay, I'm going to go back to here to lap complete. Let's move this right above this. We want to set this value first before we set it active, the manager itself active. So going to, do I need to do it right after? This is what I'm worried about. Okay, I'm gonna keep it right after. Sorry about moving it back and forth. Let me save that and go back to race finished. Race finished. If race is won, finish music. All right, let's go into our scene here. Go to our car. And need to add in that audio. So audio, music. I'm going to create a new child of music, new empty, called loser music. Add a audio source. And let's find a piece of music really quick. I don't really care right now. Audio, music, win, lose. I don't know, rock or something. Alright, that one's fine. The fourth one over for me in rock. Loser music. Sounds sort of like, it's sort of in a minor key. Do we want this to play on awake? No. We don't want it to loop. So that is totally fine. And I'm referencing that on our finish race manager. It needs to know what the loser music is. So music, drag that into here. Okay. Last thing I think I need to do, let me go back and check, is on our score mode, is we want to say whenever the timer reaches 0, race finish dot race is 1 is equal to false, and we need to set the finish race game object, sort of like we did right here when we finished our lap. So our lap complete script, we need to set our finish race manager dot set active to true. So I'm going to go back over here, create a little space, public game manager or game object finish race manager, and I'm going to put it right above. I think the order of this will be important. That set active is true, and there you go. And so on our mode manager, we need to assign that, initialize that game object. Scroll down, mode manager, and it needs to know what my finish race manager is. All right, so here's what I want to do. I'm just going to press, oh, not in this scene. You almost got me. Command S, save, go to scenes, go to track select, press play. Well, hope this works on the first run. Click here. Doesn't every programmer though? I know those are creating issues. I'm just gonna sit here. I'm having the audio, I'm gonna turn down, unmute it so I can hear the music switch. Okay, so something's worth noting. Leaving the sky car wheels on does not look very good, and our time kind of goes weird, but it does what we want it to do, which is when we lost the game, we got the music that we wanted, and the game is over. Make sure I can't move. Perfect. All right, I will work on the time issue for the next one. I'm not quite sure what that is. Time equals 0, 0, 0. Maybe it's not displaying time anymore. Actually, let's see if we can fix that really quick. So if timer is running, display time. Let's try to, what if we, even if the right time is over, let's display time. Can I just say 0? Will that work? want to try that really quick. That way it just shows a 0 at the top. I don't know if that's going to work. Yeah, because we stopped displaying time if... Maybe it's because the timer's no longer running. Yeah, I think I put a gas can right here. Alright, waiting. Alright, let's watch her. Put a gas can there. There it is. It kind of flickered, but it did set our time to 0, 0. So that looks a lot better. And I'm going to go back and turn that off. Alright, cool. So in the next video, you know what? I can't recall what we're going to work on next video, but I think I'm going to, if I recall correctly, do a lose condition. Oh, we're going to do unlockables. We're going to make it so that as we race around, we get all this money, then we have a way to save that and then unlock things. And we're going to make it so that our buttons turn on and off the race version. We don't have it currently, so we can go to just a normal race right now. So, see you in the next video.